Okay then, troops, welcome back on this wonderful Thursday for another jam-packed daily market update. We've got a lot to get into, so we're not going to waste any time. Yesterday, you had the Fed rate decision. They left rates where they were. We'll be discussing this and what's to come for rates and the dollar, thus risk assets. And then you had the sort of post-rate decision conference. Now, there was a specific crypto question that was asked in regards to banks custody in crypto. And Jerome Powell effectively said they're ready to do so. So we are going to be looking at that. Obviously, today you've got the ECB rate decision. They're likely to cut rates. Bank of Canada cut rates yesterday and stopped quantitative tightening. Now, are the Fed likely to do the same thing as one of the largest contributors to global liquidity, which, of course, is going to fulfill the macro story and prophecy that we are looking at? We'll look at the dollar on the back end of all that. You had David Sachs also yesterday on Fox talking about the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve and what's next. And the SEC have acknowledged the 19B for filing for Litecoin. Litecoin up about 10% today. And then we'll stick to some technical analysis. There's always, and this is why we try and steer people away from focusing on short-term price action. To me, it's irrelevant. What's relevant is the broader trajectory of this space. And 99% of you should be 99.9% of you should be investors in the cryptocurrency space, not traders. Don't try and be too smart and find tops and bottoms in what is a broader uptrend. You get that wrong once, and it's a very painful and costly experience. And I'm talking about that, having the experience of having done that, watched many people do that, and ultimately, in the worst case, fortunately never for myself, has it been so grievous, but actually miss out on entire bull markets. So we've got a lot to get into, guys. Let's kick things off with some takeaways from yesterday. Fed holds rates steady and takes less confident view on inflation. Now, we continue to reiterate that they're continuing to do QT, which is kind of hilarious. They're leaving rates where they are, and he was essentially very much saying the Fed needs to get to that 2% inflation goal. So CPIs are to be watched. Despite a hawkish sort of rhetoric and other central banks lowering rates, the dollar seems rather weak here, and we have looked at a broader trajectory taking it to the downside. Remember, we're looking at that Julian Bittle scenario of what took place the last time Trump was in office, which is all the way back here when he said the dollar was too high, and ultimately Trump is going to use the dollar and weaken it to encourage economic growth. Now, what did he say going into an election? He said Jerome Powell better not lower interest rates. Now, why would he say that, even though he's saying interest rates are too high and it's hurting US business? Well, he's saying that because he knows when he becomes president, which he now is, he's essentially going to, and people are missing this, do the same thing that he did previously, which is going to cause this kind of asset or risk asset great macro backdrop, which is a weak dollar. So we're looking at very much a repeat of what we saw in 2017 when he got inaugurated in January, taking place again today. The European Central Bank, of course, are set to lower interest rates again today. Germany's economy shrunk. The Eurozone is an interesting case. Here in Britain, we're an even perhaps more interesting case because not only do we have kind of worsening economic data and the BOE is continuing to hold rates where they are, we also have this kind of socialist journey that we're on, which I'm sure we're all sort of watching to see how that resolves. So yesterday was very interesting for a number of reasons. Also, the Bank of Canada reported on this. They actually reduced their policy rate by a quarter of a percent, so 25 basis points to 3%. Now, despite the Bank of Canada and the ECB lowering rates, the dollar isn't really fundamentally, you'd expect, seeing strength on the back end of this, which I think is telling in regards to what's to come. And of course, risk kind of rallied yesterday. I want to take a quick look at Nvidia because obviously on Monday, the market suffered from a kind of deep seek undermining, I guess, of the tech sector. Now, I actually think Nvidia is going to close this gap and continue higher along with risk. And I think that has everything to do with some of the macro factors that we've spoken about just. So there's a lot going on. That's why this channel and these daily market updates exist, is to help you kind of stay grounded in what is an ever-changing environment. But for us, really predominantly, we look at the crypto charts and we say we can derive a lot from that. When we look at the total market caps, when we look at Bitcoin, when we look at where altcoins are positioned, we're in this great we've got this great technical confluence across the board that's leading us to believe there's a great time ahead of us. And now we're looking at macro factors like federal policy rate. Despite them being hawkish, I don't think that's going to last. And I do think that Julian Bittle, and he's great take on it, he's backed up by a lot of data, scenario of a repeat of 2017 is going to take place. And of course, assets did very well on the back end of what Trump ultimately did. So what I want to do now is Jerome Powell's actually asked a question specifically in regards to crypto and banks. And we're going to go ahead and play that. And then we'll look at what David Sachs has to say. We'll talk about some of the things going on with ETFs. There's, I think, now 35 ETFs all waiting for approval. Litecoin likely first, then HBAR, which we're very excited about. And then we're going to finish things off with a little bit of price action. Let's dive into this.
Banks are perfectly able to serve crypto customers as long as they understand and can manage the risks, and it's safe and sound. As a good number of our banks that we regulate and supervise do that. The threshold has been a little higher for banks engaging in crypto activities, and that's because they're so new. And we don't want to make the mistake. If you're making a choice to conduct that activity inside a bank, which is inside the federal safety net with deposit insurance, then you want to be pretty sure that it's a safe and sound activity. So, we're not against innovation, and we certainly don't want to take actions that would cause banks to terminate customers who are perfectly legal just because of excess risk aversion, maybe related to regulation and supervision. So.
Very interesting. And certainly the old regime, certainly with SARB 121, really penalised banks for getting anywhere involved in the cryptocurrency space. I know here in the UK, you have anything to do with crypto, banks they just simply won't take you. The one great bank in the UK is Revolut. They're very friendly. I've had a great experience personally with them. That's a bank, if you're a crypto company, I think you should look into. Also, I only found out recently, so we own a number of stocks, guys. If you want to become a patron, it's literally the price of a meal for a month, and you get 8 meetings with me. You unlock my entire portfolio. You get access to exclusive interviews. We interviewed the senior asset manager, or the ex-senior asset manager of one of the largest hedge funds in the world, but certainly the UK. Just a few days ago, we've put that out for early release, and that was very telling. I actually only realized the other day, in the UK, we have something called Stocks and Shares ISA, which you can put 20 grand into a year, tax-free, in regards to the returns that makes. And actually, this is the interesting thing with ETFs and things like this. And actually, buying an ETF, okay, yeah, you take the self-custody asset out of it, which is, and I had an interview with the largest crypto ETF provider in terms of product range in the world, just a few days ago also. The president of that establishment, 21 Shares I'm referring to, buying an ETF is actually cheaper. You get a better deal on crypto that you're buying. You don't have to worry about self-custody, which I'm obviously native, I care about. But some people don't want the hassle of that. And actually there's this kind of unlocking that's coming in regards to regulation that is on our doorstep right now, right here. And Powell talking about banks, this is the promise with this industry. We understand because we're native, and you guys do as well. That's why you're here, and we love you. But there's this kind of industry that's yet to even be allowed to become one and unlock trillions and trillions of value, and we're kind of positioned ready for that. What I want to do now, David Sachs was on Fox yesterday, and he was asked the specific question in regards to a Bitcoin strategic reserve. A little bit disappointing in regards to what he said. Illinois, I think, filing for this. You've got a number of states out there that are really moving towards this, Wyoming, et cetera, et cetera. It will come, but it's not going to happen overnight. And I think that's why there's been a bit of disappointment despite all the good news in regards to crypto's price action. Let's dive into this, then we'll talk about ETFs and continue with some price action.
When are we going to hear the announcement about the Bitcoin reserve from the Trump administration? Everyone's waiting for that. We got the study and the review, but the Bitcoin reserve, Texas is going to move forward. It looks like with legislation Dan Patrick announced today, that's a big priority for them in Texas. But how about the Trump administration?
Well, there's also a bill in the Senate. I think Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming has introduced a bill to create a national Bitcoin reserve. President Trump has asked us to study that issue, so we're just not ready to comment on it yet, but it's one of the things our working group's going to look at.
So nothing really concrete there. These things take time. You know, people want things overnight. A lot of the stuff that's been sort of promised and spoken about is going to take a while to sort of come to fruition. Let's look at what Eric Valentunas has to say. First altcoin B19, 19B. You can see the dyslexic in me putting the B instead of the 19 there. What a wonderful world. 4, to be acknowledged. Rest, we're told to withdraw by Jen's SEC. Throw in the comments from SEC on the S1, and this filing is by far the furthest along the in regards to checking all boxes. Q now is, will the SEC, so the question now is, will the SEC wait the full 290 days or approve more rapidly? Unknown. There's a wave of things coming, guys. It's so exciting where we are right now. I mean, I'm truly blessed to have stumbled upon this industry when I did and to have this channel at a time when I do, because I truly believe we're helping people. And in regards to Bitcoin's price action, lots of altcoins look spectacular. Bitcoin's just really been caught in this range. But what we try and focus on more broadly than anything, even though we pay attention to short-term price action because it's helpful in regards to confirming the broader direction that we're going in, is the weekly time frame and the direction we're heading in, the technical targets that we have. We go into this in a hell of a lot of detail on Patreon every single Sunday. We do a full overview of the space technically. Obviously, this is when we got into the crypto space. We were doing a portfolio review yesterday. Look at some of these volumes. And Bitcoin's broken out into an all-time high. It's just consolidating in and around it. You're going to push even higher. And if you look at altcoins, they very much confirm that. If you look at the total cryptocurrency market cap, just ran into highs and is pulling back, you're going to really push above it. And this is related to the dollar and what we sort of spoke about, and that's going to be a main driver. Others really seeing a bit of a spike here. We can really correlate this entire space together very nicely. I know ADA had their hard fork yesterday. Nobody really seemed to be that bothered about it, which was interesting. The Plummin hard fork, rest in peace. We actually were lucky enough to interview Plummin and his work on stable coins. But just a little side comment there. But things truly look great, guys. And there's this really bright, prosperous future this market has ahead of it, because it's not even been allowed to be a market up until the new recent regime. And I know people get a little bit annoyed that I would say I'm pro-Trump, but that doesn't mean that I hate anybody that disagrees or anything like that. And we need to move away from sort of enemizing people that don't share an opinion that we do. I don't think Nirvana's for this world, and I don't think he's perfect. But I think in terms of the US, I think he's going to do quite well. But that's just my take. I know we lose people on that, but we have to be honest. We try and be as non-politically biased as possible. But of course, I think you have to be true to yourself also. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you all on that note. It's always an absolute pleasure checking in with you guys. Very interesting what came out of yesterday. The dollar's going to be telling moving forwards. The Trump kind of warning to Jerome Powell pre-becoming president about, you better not lower interest rates, don't you dare lower interest rates. Why would he say that? Well, because he knows he's going to ultimately sort of use that as a tool. I know the Fed is a separate entity, but he can mandate certain things and pull certain levers. Also, if you look at oil, very correlated to the dollar, oil's going to continue to come off. That's one thing I've been short. I don't particularly trade the cryptocurrency markets anymore. More the broader sort of equity and derivatives markets and forex markets. But I am perhaps going to start dabbling my toes in again. So that's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you all on that note. Check out the Patreon. Do check us out on social medias. Become a subscriber if you're not already. We streamed the whole sort of Jerome Powell speech yesterday along with the Bitcoin chart, which I know you guys liked. And thanks a lot, everybody, for showing up day in, day out. Really means the world to me. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys. See you soon.